Edmonton versus Calgary, which city is the best one to live in? We're going to talk all about that in this video. Hey, I'm Melody Wilson. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the new videos that we put out every week. And we're going to talk all about the city of Edmonton, why it's a great place to live, things and pros and cons, the cost of living, and things to do. So in this video, we're talking all about Edmonton versus Calgary. We always have a rivalry, and I am not looking for your negative comments about these two cities because they're notorious for their rivalry all the time, and I always see negative comments in the feedback, and that is not what I'm looking for. Today, it's a friendly comparison of the two different cities. If you are living in one city thinking about moving to another, or vice versa, or maybe you live in the city and you just love the city and you want to see if I missed anything, and if I did, make sure to comment below. So we're going to talk about all things Edmonton versus Calgary. And first off, I'm going to talk about the location of where Edmonton and Calgary is located for those of you watching that don't know these two cities. Now, Edmonton is the capital city of the province of Alberta, located in the western province of Canada. So Canada is the country, Alberta is the province. We don't have states like they do in the United States of America. We have provinces. And Edmonton is located quite central in the middle of that little odd shaped shape of Alberta. And then Calgary is 3 hours south of Edmonton. Both cities are quite close to the mountains. Now, of course, Calgary is a lot closer to the mountains, being only about 1 to 1.5 hours drive away. And Edmonton is closer technically to Jasper than it is to Banff, but it's still about 4 hours either way. You kind of take different routes to go to Jasper or Banff. When you're driving to Banff from Edmonton, you typically are driving around Calgary. Now, how do you get to Edmonton and Calgary? Well, if you're flying, there's a lot more direct flights from Calgary or to Calgary than there is Edmonton. Now, this is part and parcel to do with a mayor of our city in Edmonton, because we used to actually have quite a bit of direct flights. We used to have a lot of international flights coming out of Edmonton, and things changed. I don't know how many years ago now. It's been over 20 years that it's been like this, and Calgary has a lot more international flights. So you'll find a lot of times people, even in Edmonton locally, will drive down to Calgary. I've done this before, and fly direct from Calgary to where I want to go. Now, why wouldn't I just take a plane to go from Edmonton to Calgary to the destination I want to go to? Well, you'd think that the airlines would be a little bit more organized, but the flights are horrible, because once I fly to Calgary, I now have to wait till the next day to get that direct flight. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I'm not going to even get into what all that means, but the flights, there are options though. It's not like you have to drive to Calgary. And there are some direct flights to warm destinations directly from Edmonton too, because Edmonton definitely is a cold city to leave from, and so is Calgary. So they're going to have those direct flights. Going to Europe, you brought certain direct flights, and different airlines will have different places that they had fly direct and some not so much. The location of the airports in both cities is different. Now, in Calgary, the location of the airport is northwest, and you actually can hear and see the airplanes quite often in the city. I found that we were even downtown walking, you'd always hear the planes. In Edmonton, the airport is actually located outside of the city proper, and it is from the west end, about a 30-minute drive if there's not too much traffic. And so because the airport is located a bit out of the city, in the city, we don't typically hear planes or see too many of them compared to Calgary. So what's the difference in population with Edmonton versus Calgary? Though Edmonton is the capital city of Alberta, that does not mean that we are the bigger city. Population-wise, Calgary has more people. Calgary has just over 1.3 million people in their metro area, and we have just over 1 million people. And that's just Edmonton. These are just population numbers, and it adds about 500 to 600,000 depending on what source you're looking at. With Calgary, when you're putting in their areas, such as Airdrie and Chestermere, those other areas, they add about a couple 100,000. But Calgary is still the bigger city. Calgary is actually the third largest city in Canada, and Edmonton is the fifth, surprisingly enough. In between is actually Ottawa. So I was actually surprised to see that Edmonton was even as high as it was, because we are smaller than our neighbors to the south. So if you look at the biggest city in Canada, it's Toronto. So you think about that vibe if you're familiar with Toronto. How would that feel compared to Edmonton or Calgary? Well, obviously because of the population, it's gonna feel quite a bit different. So Edmonton has a smaller population base, and it can be debated that it does or does not, but I feel like it has a small town feel, especially compared to Calgary. Calgary is more urban, it has more of a downtown core established. A lot more people are downtown, and a lot of things are more situated in downtown compared to our downtown in Edmonton. Now in Edmonton, we do have the Rogers Arena now that's there, and we do have new like local up and coming food places to check out. But typically when people go home from work, it's pretty quiet in downtown compared to Calgary and their downtown core. It's definitely larger downtown, like there's more buildings, more office buildings, more roads. Edmonton definitely is a smaller base. Now, both downtowns, you can see the river valley. Edmonton's river valley is kind of off on its own there, and you have to kind of get to it from downtown. Calgary, it's just very much integrated into downtown, so it's really easy to get in and around to the Bow Valley or the Bow River. The other vibe you'll find in Edmonton versus Calgary that I've heard and I have experienced, people tend to feel like Edmonton is more friendly than Calgary. Now I have friends in Calgary, I love them, I don't think they're unfriendly, but I'm just stating what I have noticed. Even when we've taken walks in Calgary, people don't smile or say hi. But in Edmonton, it's actually quite normal for people to just smile and say hi, even if you don't know them. So that's something I found different. There are families in both Edmonton and Calgary. I don't know if there's one city that really has more than the other. Both cities are actually quite young, and so you'll find a lot of young families in both cities. If you're more active and you're able to afford the more expensive Calgary, you will find a lot of families enjoying the mountains and everything like that. But just because you live in Edmonton doesn't mean you don't enjoy the mountains. We drive down quite frequently, and so do our friends, and they also go down. It's not as easy to get to the mountains as it is from Calgary, but definitely we still do all those types of things. And there are families, there's lots of things in the city for kids and families to do. So speaking of things to do, there's a few things that you can do. Now let's just quickly talk about food, going out to eat. There's lots of places to go out to eat. There's a local food scene in both places. And I personally think Edmonton has a great variety, but so does Calgary. So I think that the two of them are pretty tied. There's a lot of cool places actually from Calgary that's come up to Edmonton. So ice cream places, those small batch ice cream places, like Made by Marcus is actually from Calgary. There are other places like OEB that actually came from Calgary, I think, but they are both in both places. But there's other cool places that you can only find in Edmonton and you can only find in Calgary. The local food scene in both places is, I think, a really great place to check out. I really like checking out all the different kinds of food and local options that both cities have. Both cities also have a Chinatown. I would say the Calgary one is a bit larger and maybe a bit safer. Edmonton's a little bit more dodgy. I don't personally go there a whole lot in Edmonton because you can find Chinese grocery stores and food all across our city, and I know you can do that also in Calgary. But Calgary's known for their Chinatown, the food there. So other things to do as a family in both cities, which one would you choose? There's Stampede versus K-Days, or previously known as Klondike Days, or maybe known as Capital X. Now, Calgary, they shut down for the whole week of the Stampede. When I was younger, like a child, Klondike Days was a big thing, and we also shut down. There was stuff all over the place, everyone dressed up like the Klondike Days, hence the name. But then somebody decided to change things in the marketing world and tried to market as Capital X and all these things, and now they're all the way back to K-Days again. But in that, the city lost its vibe to close down for the week and to gather all around. So we don't have that anymore. Calgary still has it. They're considered the greatest show on earth. So they're known for their concerts at the Stampede. In Edmonton, we are not really known for that. There are concerts at K-Days. Some of them do kind of go both. They both have the games and whatnot. K-Days has just the same as Calgary. They also have the horse races, but Calgary definitely is a bigger production, but I've been to both. And I personally like K-Days. I don't see the big deal in the Stampede, but that's because I don't go to the concert. So maybe that's the biggest difference in terms of rides and stuff for your kids to go on. They're exactly the same. That same organization comes up into Edmonton to set up and your kids are on the same rides. So I don't really see a massive difference between the two, but it's definitely a preference. And I know a lot of people from Edmonton go to Calgary for the Stampede. Now, something else you can do that Edmonton's really known for is Folk Fest. It's not super family friendly, but Folk Fest is known in Edmonton, and it's a very substantial folk fest compared to the one that Calgary does. Other things to do for your family are places such as the TELUS World of Science that Edmonton has, and Calgary has the TELUS Spark Center. So they're both these science spaces that for kids to check out. I've been to both. They're both really cool for the kids and a great indoor place when you're trying to hide from the elements of our Alberta weather, whether it's extreme rain or extreme cold or extreme heat. We do have a lot of indoor things for families to do because of our weather. Something outside you can do in Edmonton is the Fort Edmonton Park, and Calgary also has Fort Calgary. Now, they're both quite similar in terms of their themes and the fact that they talk about the olden fort days, and it's a great place for families to check out, and they're usually both all-day kind of events. Edmonton also has the Alberta Museum. As a family, they've just renovated it and it's really nice. I mean, I guess it's not just renovated, but really nice place to check out. Both cities have libraries that you can check out as a family, and those are both free things for families to do as well. And both cities have a lot of outdoor spaces. So though we have extreme weather, there's definitely the option to hang out in the outside. And Edmonton's known for the river valley. Our river valley runs through the city and it's very, very large. The exact size of it, I'll just put right here because I can't remember it. And the Bow River in Calgary, it's quite a bit smaller than Edmonton. And though our counterparts in Calgary may argue that they like theirs better, I'm gonna say I like ours better. I think there's more to do. As someone who's grown up in Edmonton, I still haven't discovered all of the River Valley, and you can access it from so many different points in the city, and it takes you all throughout. There's a whole River Valley organization, association that will kind of have it all mapped out. And you can go from like Devon, which is outside of Edmonton, all the way through. And there are different things you can do. You can go bike riding on there. You can go hiking on there. It's a kind of an oasis away from the city. When you're there, sometimes you just don't feel like you are in the city anymore. When you're in Bow River, like we went downtown Calgary walking Bow River, it's a nice river, but you're definitely surrounded by cars and buildings, and it's very urban. And in Edmonton, when you're at the River Valley, you can get lost in the trees. There are huge trees, huge paths that you don't even know you're in the city anymore. And we really love that as a family, so that we don't have a quick getaway to the mountains, but we do have a quick getaway to River Valley. And you're usually only 15 to 20 minutes away, depending on where you live in the city. It's pretty close access. Now, if you want to compare Edmonton and Calgary versus affordability, I'll give you a quick chance to guess. I'm not going to give you that long because Calgary is definitely less affordable than Edmonton. Edmonton is more affordable. Our real estate market tends to always follow Calgary's. And honestly, we don't follow it even that closely. Calgary has infill, when they talk about infill homes, those homes that are being built on land that there used to be a house, and Edmonton of course has that too. Their market is much bigger for that. And those are higher end, and a lot more of those sell and a lot more of those are built. In Edmonton, it's a lot harder to find. They do have them. Their price points are also high as well, but they're more affordable than the same product in Calgary. Calgary, I think, is set up better for that because they've done a really good job placing it into desirable areas. Edmonton, there's certain areas that it's known for, but it's kind of popping up randomly where people think there might be an opportunity. And in terms of housing, a lot of people in Calgary will move to the suburbs because it's more affordable in Airdrie or Chestermere than it is to live in Calgary downtown. Now in Edmonton downtown, you don't want to live downtown as a family in Edmonton, but you don't need to move out to the suburbs. Now, the suburbs you can, and it is cheaper to live there in like Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Fort Saskatchewan, but St. Albert and Sherwood Park is actually no different in price. And if anything, it actually is a little bit more money than Edmonton proper. So when you're looking at the two in general, Edmonton is still more affordable. Even St. Albert and Sherwood Park is more expensive than Edmonton. It's still more affordable than Calgary. Calgary is definitely, you're paying premium for the land and being close to those mountains, and especially if you can see those mountains from your window. So in the time of filming this video in December of 2022, the November average price of single family homes in Calgary is just over $490, and in Edmonton, it was $459. So you can see the discrepancy, but you can also see it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. It is a difference, and it does of course make a difference in terms of what product you're looking, whether it's new build, infill, or a resale home. So let's talk about the weather, Edmonton versus Calgary. Which one would be better? I don't know, you make that decision. I feel like we're in Alberta, both cities are in Alberta, and the thing about Alberta is if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes because it'll change. And that's totally true. Like you can have extreme temperatures of -40 one day and then -2 the next day. How does it even work? There's such an extreme in temperature. In Calgary, they're known for their Chinooks, which is warm winds. And we don't really have those in Edmonton a whole lot. And so if you really like that and you need that, then Calgary would be a winner in that sense. Both places have equal amounts of sun, I believe, or both in Alberta. Again, like the weather within 3 hours isn't going to be massively different. Now, I do know that some people can't handle the Chinooks for headaches and whatnot, so sometimes Edmonton might be better, but they both have extreme temperatures. So what about the safety in both Edmonton and Calgary? Which one's better? Honestly, I'm not a police person, but I would check on the City of Edmonton police crime map and the City of Calgary crime map and take a look. Both cities are going to have crime. You're going to hear varying opinions on crime depending on if people have experienced it or not. I think that both cities being a little bit smaller than those large metro cities in Canada, you're going to have less crime. But of course, you're always going to have crime no matter what place you go. So just make sure you pick an area where you're going to live with your family in the safe area that you feel comfortable with. So in Edmonton and Calgary, how do you get around? There's going to be the ETS, and I don't know what the Calgary transit system is called. I know that the ETS is not known for its safety. We're just talking about that. And I'm not sure about Calgary because I've never ridden the Calgary transport. I also have no idea the cost and how frequent and how good it is. But I know that Edmonton's needs work. We definitely don't have a great system in place, and the LRT, the light rail transit, is definitely not going through the whole city like Calgary's does. So definitely their system is more organized than ours. And we are working on it. And we were supposed to open up a whole new wing so it go into Southeast Edmonton because it was just going central. It started downtown, then it went to the University of Alberta, and then it's going north. Now, it's slowly making its way to west and south, but it's taking a very long time. And the stuff that was supposed to open recently had issues, and now it's still not open. So if you're looking at that in terms of public transit, Calgary's probably a better place for that versus Edmonton. Now, in terms of driving, we both actually have main arteries. Edmonton has the White Mud, which is the original like south to north kind of highway or freeway, sorry. And then Anthony Henday is the newer ring road that goes all around the city. We also have Yellowhead that is in the northern part of Edmonton that goes across the city. And those are the three main arteries. They both have horrible traffic right now. All of them have construction on them because I don't know why the city needs to have construction on every main artery, but that's what's happening. And our traffic jam times are from basically 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 7, which is the same as Calgary, the same backlog of traffic. Calgary definitely has bigger freeway roads, and the roads to me seem a little bit more thought out, more proactively, whereas Edmonton kind of reacts and then builds random things and roads after the fact. Calgary's main arteries is the Deerfoot, McLeod, and Stony Trail. Those are all their major arteries, so they also have 3 main spaces as well. But if you've ever driven in Calgary and Edmonton, you'll find it's a little bit more, the traffic flows a bit better. Now, Edmonton was, for the most part, all northwest. It was really weird. The quadrant of Edmonton on your address is usually northwest, and then we started having southwest with all the new neighborhoods and stuff. Calgary actually is actually planned in the middle. So it goes from central downtown and out. So it's actually northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast, like properly on what you would assume to see. Whereas Edmonton definitely isn't like that. So driving around finding an address in Calgary, I find actually more difficult, not because of the quadrants, but because there's names. They use named streets, and Edmonton primarily uses numbers. So if I'm going and I want to go to 156th Street, and I'm driving and the numbers are getting smaller to 152, 151, I know I'm going the wrong way, I turn around. If you're in Calgary and you're going by names, I don't know. Obviously, if you grew up there, it's probably easier, but for me, I always struggle with it. And now with Edmonton's newer neighborhoods, we have also gone away from the streets, and now there's also named streets as well in Edmonton. So what do you think? Edmonton versus Calgary? I want to see your positive comments down below of anything I may have missed, because there's so many great things about both cities. I think they're both, at the end of the day, way more affordable and a great place to live and grow up your family in Canada.